You're watching the Night Report at 10 on NBC North Dakota News, your news leader in high definition.
After the 8:15 call, did you have any other contact with Jack that evening?
No, that was the last time I spoke with Jack. That was the last time I have ever heard his voice.
Jury members heard some emotional witness testimony today in the trial of a Williston man charged with murder. Good evening, I'm Hallie Rosa. Thanks for joining us. Ryan Stensaker is accused of shooting Jack Scholl on Scholl's ranch in April of last year and dumping his body several miles away. Joe Skrzyszewski has more on day one of his trial. Joe?
Thanks, Hallie. Ryan Stensaker is facing AA felony murder charges in the death of Jack Scholl. Now, Stensaker sat in silence today as loved ones of Scholl's and detectives took the stand. The prosecution and the defense gave their opening statements today in the Ryan Stensaker trial. The prosecution laid out what they saw as overwhelming evidence, including the discovery of bullet shells, blood, and even a torched vehicle. The defense asked the jury to not hold preconceived notions going into the trial.
Numerous tire tracks where a vehicle had been backed up to the blood spots, to the shell casings, to the teeth, to the crown, to the glasses.
Ryan Stensaker is an innocent man. The presumption that he is innocent is absolute and will remain so throughout the course of this trial.
8 people took the stand on day one, including emotional testimonies from Jack Scholl's longtime girlfriend, Kelly Blomberg, and her son, Kellen, on the moments leading up to Scholl's disappearance and the ensuing frantic search.
I was thinking he must have been in the field, maybe kicked by a cow or a horse, so I walked the acreage looking for Jack.
And did you find anything at that time?
I did not.
I seen his glasses and the hair stood up on my neck, and I said, excuse my language, I said, get the cops out here now.
Several officers and investigators also took to the stand, describing to the jury the evidence found at the scene. The prosecution and defense asked questions on the nature of the blood stains at the scene and the pattern of the tire treads left in the dirt.
A drag of blood would be comparable to what we saw in the photograph earlier, where you might have a collection or a pool of blood with what appears to be lines or streaks.
Before testimony wrapped for the day, the defense cross-examined McNamee.
You ever found a motive behind this thing at all, or are we just in the dark in terms of why?
We do not have a motive, no.
McNamee is expected to be called to the stand again. Now, the Ryan Stensaker trial continues tomorrow before breaking for the weekend. 8 people testified before the jury of 12 today. Now, many were law enforcement officials who investigated the case. People with close connections to the Stensaker family also shared with the jury some of the events leading up to Jack Scholl's untimely death. The prosecution had witnesses who worked at the scene walk them through the discovery of weapons, ammunition, and ID cards in the Stensaker residence and underneath Ryan Stensaker's mattress.
What are we looking at here?
That was the 300 Savage long rifle that was on top of the box spring.
A key testimony from the day involved Candace Coulterman, an acquaintance of the Stensaker family who lived in their home at the time of Jack Scholl's disappearance. Coulterman said that when she came home from work one day, she found Ryan taking what looked like a brown hunting rifle out of a storage room under the stairs.
Do you know where the firearm would have been taken from?
I'd imagine the locker, because at the time I heard metal, like a clanging, and then afterwards when I looked in there, the locker was open and there were other guns in there.
Coulterman told the court that Stensaker went upstairs to his room. She waited for him downstairs before growing impatient and heading upstairs to take a shower. That's when she walked by his bedroom.
What did you see Mr. Stensaker doing?
He was playing with the gun, clicking the lever or the trigger over and over again, staring off into space.
The defense argued that no one can tie the weapons to the murder. During the cross-examination, the defense challenged Coulterman on her memory of Stensaker's actions that night.
How many times did he click it?
I couldn't give you a time because I didn't sit there and count.
More than once?
Yes, more than once.
When you looked in the room, did you see the gun?
Yep, in his hands.
You saw Ryan with the gun?
Yep.
Is it possible you didn't tell him about the rifle until you were re-interviewed shortly before we got ready for trial?
I don't know. I basically answered whatever questions they told me, and whatever information I had. When they asked me, I told it to them.
The prosecution ended the day by questioning a dentist who identified the crown found at the scene as that of Jack Scholes. And that trial continues Monday morning. 8 people took the stand today. Family and friends of Jack Scholes looked on as investigators, law enforcement officials, and a medical examiner testified to the discovery, exhuming, and autopsy of Scholes' body. Most of the day's testimony centered on the events of May 14, 2013, the day investigators found Jack Scholes' body in a landfill in Williams County. Testimonies that left Scholes' family, friends, and loved ones in attendance fighting back tears.
What did you see when you first got to that portion of the garbage dump?
I observed a blue cloth, and it appeared to be a blue heavy cloth jacket, and I could also observe that there was what appeared to be a body contained in that jacket.
The prosecution also questioned investigators on tire tracks found at the dump site, as well as pieces of mail buried near the body.
A tire track was found that led up to near where Jack Scholes' body was ultimately found.
Could you describe how they were similar?
They have the same pattern. The tire tracks at Mr. Scholes' residence had the same pattern as the tire tracks that we see here at the dump site location.
The correspondence that was found, do you recall whose name was on it?
Ryan Stensaker.
During cross-examination, the defense challenged witnesses on how the tire tracks came about and how the mail got into the garbage pit.
There's no physical evidence that would help the jury in determining who may have driven the Escalade to the pit, is there?
No.
And it certainly could have been somebody other than Ryan Stensaker, correct?
I would agree with that.
And there's no way you can tell based on the tire track whether or not that tire track has anything to do with Jack Scholes being in that dump, can you?
No.
And you have no personal knowledge as to how the mail got into the pit?
No.
The proceedings ended for the day with a lengthy testimony from Dr. William Masello, who performed the autopsy on Scholes' body, a testimony filled with graphic images. One of Scholes' loved ones had to leave the courtroom. Now, testimony will continue tomorrow. The prosecution says they hope to have their questioning wrapped up either late Tuesday or early Wednesday. Day 4 of the trial began differently from yesterday, going back to testimonies of one of the rifles confiscated from the home of Ryan Stensaker. It was a busy day of evidence from start to end, including an appearance from one of the actual tires from Stensaker's Cadillac Escalade that was destroyed by a fire. Lamont Jacobson, a forensic supervisor for the state crime lab, guided prosecutors through his evaluation of a .277 Remington rifle found in Stensaker's home. He showed how markings on a test bullet matched a bullet found at the crime scene.
What I've done here is brought the evidence, item 13, compared to the test fire, item 26D.
Defense attorney Stephen Mottinger challenged the markings, saying it didn't prove that the bullets were shot from the gun, only that they were in the gun.
The copper lead core bullets that you recovered, you can't positively say they were fired from that .722 Remington you examined, correct?
Yes.
The shell casings that were found at the scene, you can't positively say that they were fired from that weapon.
Yes.
Witnesses also testified on the events of April 30th, 2013, when a fire destroyed Ryan Stensaker's Cadillac Escalade near the Epping Dam in Williams County. Deputy Fire Marshal Ken Sisk pointed out how the front right panel and tire of the Escalade were hardly damaged, ruling out an engine fire and the discovery of remnants of a gas can inside the car.
This would tell me that the fire originated somewhere farther back in the cab area.
Now, the defense challenged if it was possible to know how the fire started.
There's nothing in the burn marks or the fire damage that can definitely establish that an accelerant was purposely placed in those areas, correct?
Correct.
And you cannot positively testify that this vehicle was intentionally set on fire, can you?
No.
Tuesday's testimonies wrapped with a familiar face. The prosecution had Levi Cabler of the Williams County Sheriff's Department point out similarities between the tire tracks in the snow at the Epping Dam, the Scholes residence, and the dump site where Jack Scholes' body was found. The prosecution even rolled out one of the intact tires from the Escalade into the courtroom, but the defense challenged the connection.
You can't be positive that the Escalade that had the tires on it at the Epping Dam was responsible for the prints at the Scholes residence or the dump, can you?
I can't know.
The defense also noted the popularity of the Cooper tires on the vehicle. Now, the prosecution says that they hope to have their witnesses wrapped up sometime tomorrow morning.
To the crime of murder charged in the information, we, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled action to find the defendant, Ryan Lee Stensaker, guilty.
It didn't take long to convict Stensaker once the jury started deliberating. Good evening, I'm Hallie Rosa. Thanks for joining us. Joe Skrzyszewski joins us live with more. Joe?
Thanks, Hallie. The 12-person jury also found Stensaker guilty of being a felon in possession of the 2 firearms found at his residence. Now, the verdict comes as a relief to the family and friends of murder victim Jack Scholl. The jury took roughly 3 hours to make its decision, and when the court's clerk read the verdict, several friends and family of Jack Scholl's broke down in tears. After the proceeding, Scholl's brother and sister-in-law shared their thoughts. Your reaction to the verdict?
Very relieved. Very relieved. We're happy.
And it's our prayers were answered. We've been walking around numb for a year and a half. And finally we got a guilty verdict, and it's just hard to explain how relieved we are now. We can start the grieving process.
For the Scholl family, the verdict has been a year and a half in the making, dating back to April of 2013 when Jack first disappeared. How much of a burden has this been for Jack's family and friends over the past year and a half?
I can't explain how much of a burden. It's unbelievable. Go to bed every night and wake up every morning with the same thoughts. And this is a big day. It's probably not the end. There's more coming, but this is a big day.
We have eaten, lived, and breathed this since Jack was murdered, and this is the day that we've been waiting for, and it's here, thank God.
The Scholls stepped aside momentarily to congratulate and to thank the prosecution. Stensaker's defense attorney, Stephen Moninger, acknowledged it was a tough day for anyone involved with the case.
This was a difficult case. It's a tough day for everybody. I think both sides did a really good job of presenting their views to the jury. The jury ultimately did not agree with our assessment of the case. That's why we have juries.
Judge David Nelson ordered a pre-sentencing investigation before Stensaker is sentenced. Now, the Scholl family says that they plan on celebrating Jack's birthday this weekend. He would have been 60 years old on Friday.